So, something that always draws my interest is like the environment that a writer works in. And your way of working is what amazes me the most. Like, how you can jot everything down at any time, anywhere, into your Blackberry, your phone. The first time we went out, you showed me the little notebooks you wrote your stories in.
This is how I wrote Narcisa, was in these books.
And I find that more amazing than anything else.
You know, these are my
But the Blackberry, a cell phone, how does that work?
Well, then I sort of got high-tech, and I switched from these books
High-tech
to the Blackberry. I got the Blackberry because the Blackberry has memo pads. You can actually write a whole book on this little tiny Blackberry. I'm pressing these little buttons. So I did the editing and the rewrite of Narcisa, at least a lot of the material, on the Blackberry. Because, you know, this is Rio de Janeiro. You can't just go whip out your computer in the fucking, you know, alleys of Vila Limons or Lapa and be like, give it to me, you know. So, but this just looks like a telephone. So, you know, I like to write wherever I am. Yeah, I mean, I write anywhere. I don't really need to sit at a desk.
I've seen you sending in lines to go somewhere and just getting your phone and writing down, and then it's in your blog.
Yeah, that's how I do it. You know, if I'm sitting in a club or at a party, and I get there and I look around and I'm like, boring, and then I just pull out my Blackberry and I find a corner and I write.
And everything eventually pops up on your blog, Scabvendor.
Yeah, and a lot of the blog entries, I'm now editing them into the second version of the second edition of Narcisa, because the first version
sold out already.
Came out, it was published in the States, and I'm not going to do another run. What I'm doing is I'm doing a complete rewrite of the original book with a professional book editor, because I'm not a formal writer and I don't have any education and I don't have any, you know, scholastic training or any academic skills. I'm just a fucked up sort of journalist, and I just write my experiences or my visions or whatever. I guess that's what they call it. You know, so that's the way I write. But you know, now I've got like this novel that's got a beginning, a middle, and end, and this big literary agent in the States read the whole book and he said, wow, I really love your book, but, you know, it needs to have more of a story arc, and it has to have, you know, cleaning up, and it needs to, you know, be more whatever, professional. And I was like, well, I agree with you. This is as far as I could take it on my own. I was working with a small publisher. We didn't have any resources, so I just wrote the book, and then I went through it about 300 times and just tied it up and made it as neat as I could, and then I just said, okay, here you go. And they were like, great, and they published it. So they, you know, I started working with this editor that this literary agent put me in touch with, and the editor was fantastic. She just took the book, she read it, she loved it, and she said, well, you know, it needs more of a dramatic arc, and, you know, and I know just what to do, so I'm going to give you some suggestions. So she took the manuscript and she cut out a lot of the redundancies and the cliches and all the bad writing and just cut it down.
Narcisa's stories, adventures seem endless, you know, like they could go on forever and, you know, have a bunch of books only about that. Have you ever thought about making like adult literary series, maybe?
Me and Alessandro were talking about this yesterday, and I said, you know, I proposed a new ending. Yeah, I want to run this by you too, because I actually proposed a new ending to my two editors, because, you know, Alessandra is my unofficial editor, and
she's right behind the camera
and
right
she
now.
does as much, you know, to help me in the editing process as the other editor. So having the two of them together is really great, because the professional book editor, she gives me like skills, you know, and tells me these are rules and you can break them, but this is what we're trying to get to. And Alessandra gives me sort of like the worldview of like Joe Reader. She goes, this is cool, this sucks, I can relate to this, that's not so good. And I can sort of bounce the two of these editing minds back and forth, and, you know, Alessandra's also helping me with, like, you know, cutting and slicing and giving me her version of things, what she thinks is going to be more dramatic. And then, you know, with the three of us working together, I think it's going to be a pretty cool book. But see, what I proposed was a totally different ending, because we have like 5 alternative endings to Narcisa, and in some of them, the protagonist dies in the end.
Oh, I remember that.
And I'm proposing an open-ended ending where she doesn't die.
She doesn't die.
Nobody knows. She just sort of, they break up, he goes one way, she goes the other, and then we leave it sort of like ambiguous in the end. And see, I kind of like that ending because it's you know, it's very.
You know, you shouldn't talk about the ending.
No, I'm not gonna. I don't know what the ending's gonna be now. You know, so we don't know what the ending's gonna be. But if I use this new proposed ending, I said to Alessandro, well, the cool thing about that is it leaves it open for a sequel.